There we go.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Delta Township Board to order. Will the board members and guests please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mojica. Here. Trustee Cascarella. Trustee Fonda Brewer. Present. Trustee Bowen. Treasurer Fedewa.
Here.
Clerk Clark is present. Supervisor Fletcher.
Here.
Motion, we have quorum.
Thank you. Motion to excuse trustees Bowen and Cascarella.
So moved.
Been moved. Is there support? There is support. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. We have a couple special presentations this evening, and first up is the annual Eaton County 911 and Central Dispatch report. So we have Kelly Cunningham here this evening, the director, to give us an overview of the year's activities. Welcome, Kelly.
Hello, I am Kelly Cunningham. I am the Eaton County 911 Director. I did just want to make sure everyone got a copy of our annual report. It touches on police, fire, and EMS statistics, also our emergency and non-emergency call volume. And then also Rave Alert is what we use to notify citizens of traffic or any emergency alerting. It is an opt-in system. And then we also are deployed Rave Panic button, which is deployed throughout all Eaton County schools. And then also Smart 911 is another thing that is helpful. So back in the day, we all used to have home landlines and we would get information about who lives there and your address, your cross street. Now, when you call on a cell phone, we just get your GPS location and very little information. So you can create a Smart 911 profile and you can attach your name, anything you want 911 to know in case you have an emergency. So it is not searchable, but when you do dial 911, it pops up and we have access to that information. So I have some teenagers that have cell phones, so it's great because if I can attach their cell phone number to my information, and if they were ever to call 911, they know exactly who to call. So, and then the other thing I wanted to touch on is the Eaton County 911 millage. It's going to be on the ballot on August 2nd. And this millage has been in place since 1988. So it's a renew and restore. Due to the Headley Amendment, it was rolled back to a 0.9490 of a mill. So we're looking to have it go back to its initial rate as a 0.95 of a mill. And this millage provides funding for staffing, training, facilities, technology, and equipment needed to answer emergency calls and quickly send the appropriate emergency services. And one other thing that I just kind of want to point out is there is a 911 surcharge. And what that was used for is for the new radio system, which is the Michigan Public Safety Communication System. And that was to build the infrastructure and provide equipment to all first responders in Eaton County. So there is a difference between the millage and the surcharge. So if you have any questions, I can answer them now, or my contact information is in the annual report and on the millage information sheet.
Great. Well, thanks, Kelly. Questions, Andrea?
Yes, and my apologies for missing the beginning part of your presentation. Just quick question for you on Headley. So I'm assuming that the revenues generated under the existing millage wouldn't exceed that threshold, so that's adjusted for its, okay.
Yep, correct.
And that was just a 1-year reduction then? How long was that from the Headley?
1 year reduction.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Other questions? Okay, well, thanks,
All
Kelly.
right,
We
thank you
appreciate
for your
being
time. I
here.
appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Next on the agenda is our annual Juneteenth resolution to recognize and celebrate the Juneteenth holiday. And I don't see Marilyn Rogers, so she's not.
I don't see her yet,
Oh.
so I don't know if she's delayed or
Sure.
I know she was visiting quite a few councils
Right,
tonight.
right, absolutely. This is a resolution I know we have done in the past. It just recognizes Juneteenth as a holiday. And this year I know the township will be celebrating it as well as closing our office. So with that, what's the pleasure of the board? Fonda.
I don't know where the words are, but I move the passage of
Sure.
the Juneteenth resolution as
Great.
presented.
Is there support?
Support.
There is support. Any discussion? See, go ahead, Fonda.
I just wanted to make a comment and say, I really, really appreciate the township and the board last year in passing Juneteenth as a holiday for the employees. That was just such a big, bold move and so supportive of what this is all about. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And I also wanted to let everyone know, you can check, I'm sure, the local papers or the Juneteenth website. There will be lots of Juneteenth activities on that day, from St. Joe Park to East Lansing to Rio Town. Meridian Township is doing something. So there's lots of things to do on that day to celebrate the independence. Thank you.
Great. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. We have the agenda in front of us. If there's no additions or deletions, the motion to approve. Karen,
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
is there support?
Support.
There is support. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Public comment for items not on the agenda. Anybody here this evening would like to speak? Come on, sir. Just come on up to the podium. Just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is John Seraphin. My address is 7511 Echo Lane, which is down by Mount Hope at Canal. I'm before the board today, calling regarding a complaint on MetroNet. They originally, back in February, when they were putting in the underground facilities, they put the box in the wrong spot, about 15 feet off of where it should have been on the lot line. I did talk to Jennifer of your office, who did get with them. They came back and relocated two boxes, one on the outside side of the street and then one at mine. However, in doing so, they dug up a trench about 15 feet by 2 foot wide. And they also roughed up the lawn to where it's really bumpy and needs rolling out. I did contact Jennifer here at your office on 2 or 3 occasions. And the last was on the 22nd of last month regarding MetroNet not restoring the facility. The long and short of that was my first call to Jennifer. I did get a call from somebody from MetroNet claiming they would be out the next day to do the restoration. They never showed up. I did call Jennifer back again, left her a message. I won't go into all the details, but there was messaging back and forth. The long and short of it is the lawn has not been restored, and Jennifer was supposed to get back with me the 22nd of last month. I haven't heard from her, but the lawn has not been restored. Before the township, does anything on letting some of these utilities into the township, I don't feel it's my job to have to babysit those people as to where the facilities should or shouldn't be located. That's not my call. However, where they mess up the lawn, even though it is partially on private property of mine, partially in the road, they should restore it in good fashion as it was before. So I'm going to ask the board at this time to take the initiative to make sure that MetroNet or whoever it is they've got working in the area comes out, restores the 2 different areas that's damaged on the property, and let it go with that.
Okay, well, thank
Any
you, sir.
questions?
We've had other complaints from MetroNet too. Unfortunately, these utilities can come in. We really can't keep them out, but we do definitely engage when they don't leave things in a proper condition to try to reach out to them to fix them. Brian, what recourse do we have if they're not fixing things to the satisfaction of residents? Because obviously Jennifer and stuff have reached out to them, so we have engaged with them.
They have, they've typically been pretty responsive. I don't know if this is just weather related, and I apologize that they haven't been out. We have had several, several complaints about restoration, and usually they've taken care of them. I know we have a couple in the queue right now that we're waiting on them to come out and fix. Supervisor Fletcher, I'd have to check our Metro agreement because they have an agreement that's basically through the state. So as Supervisor Fletcher said, there's not a lot of recourse we have to block them coming into using public utilities, and there's quite a bit of demand for high speed, but there is some language in there for restoration or, I don't remember if there's specific penalties, but I'd have to look back. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we certainly will continue to follow up with them and, their local representatives to make sure they
My
follow
phone number,
through.
if you've got any further comments or questions, 517-282-5537. And as I said, it was kind of surprising on the restoration issue when I called Jennifer. I did get a call from their people the following day saying they'd be out the next day, which was a Wednesday. And it was a no-show. Then several other calls to Jennifer, and then I didn't get a call back. So here I am. And thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good evening.
Any other public comment this evening? Seeing none, we'll continue on with the agenda and we'll move to the consent agenda. It's the pleasure of the board this evening on consent agenda.
I'd move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Been moved by Fonda. Is there support?
Support.
There is support. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on approving the consent agenda this evening?
Trustee Brewer,
Yes.
trustee Cascarilla,
Yes.
trustee Mohica,
Yes.
treasurer Fedorov,
Yes.
clerk Clark is yes, supervisor Fletcher,
Yes.
and trustee Bowen. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. We'll continue now to the items of business, and we have one item number 7, the Ultium Battery Plant Water and Sanitary Sewer Service. And the engineering department recommends that the board approves the proposal in the amount of $278,000. Rick, would you like to say something about this before we have a motion?
Thank you, Supervisor Fletcher and Board. No, I was just gonna, probably the biggest thing on this is the timeline. It's 6 months ahead of what we thought was an accelerated timeline. They're looking at having infrastructure by June of 2023. So what we've done is we've kind of broken it into phases. A critical path to get water and sewer on site, which would give them fire protection and be able to build for assembly of the factory and also sanitary. And then the phase 2 would be come in to reinforce for the full needed 1.4 to 1.7 million gallons of water per day, along with 500,000 gallons of sanitary sewer. So this is the start of a few of these. We finished the study phase. This is for phase 1, the critical path to design. This has a lot of pipe in the ground. So this will be phase 1, just getting water and sewer on site. In phase 1, future contracts will come to you for construction of phase 1. And then right after that, it'll be design of phase 2 and then construction of phase 2. So it's some of the things we've done to help expedite this is by breaking it up into phases. Working with contractors, working with suppliers to figure out how can we get this much pipe in the ground at the schedule when there's a 6-month holdout for pipe. So from there, that's just some of the key items I wanted to point out. You can see the map kind of explains phase 1, phase 2. The purple is water and sewer. The gold is yellow is sanitary sewer force main. And you can see where it's broke down into phase 1 and phase 2. And from there, I can answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have questions? Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Do we have any, of course, I'm somewhat alarmed with the accelerated time frame here, now another 6 months, cut off. Which leads me to ask, we're anticipating $33 million for this. Is there any penalty if we're just unable to complete this in their time frame over issues that we have no control of?
I am unaware of any. We're still, General Motors and the Dalton facility is still actually starting the design of this as well. I'm sure they're going to encounter the same issues that we are. Sorry, I can't answer if,
Yeah,
there's-
well, I didn't necessarily expect you to know offhand. I just, there's such an expectation, an afterthought that this is just going to happen magically. And, the mechanics of doing stuff is often just overlooked. It's, and it's arduous at best. So I just don't want the township to, to be in a position of being on the hook for some sort of penalty. They probably haven't thought of that, but I'm concerned about that. The other thing is are there any issues regarding the accessibility or easements requirement? Not all of it's along the roadway, I see. What about the soils? Is that pretty much all laid out and a known factor at this point?
Correct. Currently, the easement is a little more straightforward because it's General Motors.
Yeah.
So it's just it's one entity that it's in our best interest to give us the easement. The path that they've chosen is, there is some wetland and we have to do some wetland delineation. We walked the site this Friday to get a real good eyes on it. But right now we're looking at soil boring and muck probing the end of this month, the first part of June. And that's really going to lay out where this infrastructure is going to be placed.
So my last question is, are we front loading the expenses on this in anticipation that we'll get reimbursed with the $33 million? Is that what's happening right now?
That is a very good question that I cannot answer at this point. A lot of it, we're hoping it kind of matches up as we get into this. One thing that we may have to look at is buying the materials of pipe up front to get ahead of it. At that point, that would be the best question to ask to find out, if we do have to procure materials, self-procure them as opposed to as the bidding process.
As well as staff time, cost allocated. Brian, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I can, at this point, we are front loading some money, but we've gotten assurances. LEAP is still working with MEDC on the final grant agreements. So as I understand it, and I've seen a draft that is written back that it'll cover all costs back to January, some date in January. So I feel pretty comfortable. This is, we're not front loading a lot of money, but we got to get moving on some of the design, and we've already, obviously expended some money in terms of with our consultants and first working on some property acquisition for the Carrier Creek. So we expect those to be reimbursed under the award from the state, but we're still waiting for, we will have to have a project agreement in play, or a grant, whatever type of agreement in place with LEAP, because they will be the pass through and managing the dollars. So they'll draw down from the state and then reimburse us for project costs.
Sure, and we have a tracking and coding in place, so we're able to substantiate, the time on task that we're doing this.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Rich?
Just one question, Rick. Is there any unique pipes that you'll have to use for this project, or you'll use the same thing that we would use for when we're installing pipe these days?
It'll be typical pipe construction. One of the caveats is when we bore under, like we're going to bore underneath I-96 at 2 locations. We usually use a HDPE, which is a formulation of plastic. But it's going to be either ductile iron, HDPE, or a fusible PVC. So it'll be normal construction, but we may have to get creative on pipe availability. Typically, we use ductile iron for a lot of this. We're looking at alternatives, and HDPE will probably be the front runner.
And what's the lifespan of that material, do you think?
HDPE would have a much longer lifespan than ductile iron and delta soils. We do have corrosive soils, so in this application, the HDPE would be more beneficial.
What do you think? Is it like 50 years, 100 years?
Again, if it's properly bedded and properly installed, it should easily get 50 to 100 years. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's it.
Other questions? Say that? Okay, what's the pleasure of the board on this item? Yes.
Me?
Yes.
No.
I thought your hand went up.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
I move that the Delta Township Board accept the proposal from OHM for the purpose of providing design and bidding phase engineering services for the GM Ultium Battery Facility Sanitary Sewer Critical Path Utilities Project in the amount of $235,000. Further, that the township manager is hereby authorized to sign and execute an agreement for said services on behalf of Delta Township. I further move that the Delta Township Board accept the proposal from Tetra Tech for the purpose of providing design and bidding phase engineering services for the GM Ultium Battery Facility Water System Critical Path Utilities Project in the amount of $278,000. Further, that the township manager is hereby authorized to sign and execute an agreement for said services on behalf of Delta Township.
Is there support?
Support.
There is support. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Managers report.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and board members. A couple of projects underway right now. Delta Mills pickleball courts are under construction for that special coating that we'll be putting on. So we hopefully those will be back playable by June. Likewise, the east-west pathway and the kind of the long-awaited repair of the area near the bridge and all the drainage problems is under construction now. So I know that's you've probably seen the notices we put out, so I know that's an inconvenience to people, but it'll be nice to hopefully fix that problem, which has been a long-standing maintenance issue over the years, and that we hope to have that completed by Memorial Day to get that area of the east-west pathway back in service. Thanks to Alana, if you remember in the past, we've done the Green Communities Challenge through the Michigan Municipal League and Township Association. So Alana submitted our submission this year, so we'll see what level of certification we get. So that's always nice to be recognized there. We've had quite a bit of hiring going on lately. We just, which the chiefs may talk about in their report, but we did provide tentative offers to 8 new firefighter, some paramedics, some basic EMTs. At varying levels of schooling. So we have acceptance of those offers subject to getting through physicals and stuff. So I know that we still have a bit of a road to go with that, but it's we're getting there to get back to full staffing. We had a new employee start in our engineering department today, Eric Daring, and we'll have another one in, I believe, another week or 2 starting kind of a deputy engineer. So as you remember, we have 2 long-term employees retiring out of engineering here in 2 weeks. So it's nice to have those backfilled. Also, I asked our new HR director to be here tonight, Kyla Moore. I'm very happy to introduce her, have her come up and just introduce herself. But we're really thrilled to have somebody with her education and experience and caliber with how much stuff we have going on. This is just a critical position for our organization. So I'm very excited to have Kyla aboard.
Good evening. I'm excited to be here as well. So
I'm actually so proud to be able to serve my community in Delta Township and where I live. I know that was one of my major speaking points when I was interviewed in this very room, that I really wanted to work somewhere in my community in which I could be proud of. So I'm glad to be on board. This is only my second week, but I'm very excited. A lot to take in, I know, and a lot to wrap my head around, but yet and still I'm down for the challenge and I'm very excited to be here. I don't know if you have any questions or if you, anything of me.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. And it's always a positive thing when an employee comes back after the first week. So that's great.
Yep. Welcome to the challenge.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
welcome. We're glad to have you part of the team there. And I know you'll be working with Linda Wells, who've been so great for the township all these years. There's a lot of information and everything that she brings. So it's good to have you on board.
She has a wealth of knowledge and I'll be soaking it all up. So
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you.
The last thing, Mr. Supervisor, is we did last Monday, there was a notice of the drainage determination of practicality for the Biggs and Branks drain. Alana and Rick both did attend that. So they did vote to, I believe, combine parts of those two drains into one drainage district and determine practicability moving forward. So I don't know, Alana, if you have anything to add or if anybody has any questions about the process moving forward. It sounds like it's a fairly long process to study now.
Yeah, it's a long process. Just, I'm sure some of you are curious. They did send out notices to 2,000 properties and had 30 people attend in person, but they also had Zoom available for those who weren't able to attend in person. I'm not sure what that number is. So for the number of notices that were sent out, it was kind of a low turnout, but there will be another meeting where the public will be able to comment again. So the board did hear comments from many of the residents that did attend. A lot of the comments were from the Briggs drain. As Brian had mentioned, one of the votes that they were, one of the items that they were voting on that night was to consolidate the two inter-county drains into one inter-county drain, which would leave the Briggs branch with Eaton County. And a lot of those comments were from the Briggs branch. So the petition ended up being sufficient. They had 56 sufficient signatures, 59 total. And then they found that it was practical to move forward with looking at designs. And so pretty much by the end of the meeting, they decided to hire Spicer to continue to do work because they've already done some preliminary work in that area. And it's going to take a while, but at a future meeting, they'll come back with one or more solutions and an estimated cost. And that's when they'll also have additional public comment to hear from residents and whether or not they'll decide to continue to move forward.
I've sat on the Zoom and listened to it in its entirety, and it was a really good exchange of questions from the residents and the commissioners that were there. But one thing I think that I didn't know, and maybe Alana can explain it to me, was the Briggs pipe area line, that there really would be no work done to that one, but the residents will be assessed.
Yeah.
And so that was a surprise, it seemed to me, to the people that came from the Briggs area that were connected to the Briggs pipe, that they're going to have to pay this assessment, but there would be no work. That would have to be a different decision made, perhaps by a different group of people. Eaton County would have to decide if they're going to participate or do something with those pipes. Did I get that right?
If they wanted to make improvements to the Briggs branch, that'll be an additional petition. They won't need as many signatures. They'll only need 5. So they're able to start that petition, and I believe it can run concurrently with the other petition. So.
Yeah, the inter-county drain that they were mainly voting on is from Saginaw Highway north and a little section or along Waverly. And by combining those two jurisdictions allows them to do that work. Now, It will benefit. You are exactly correct that everybody will be assessed. And the reasoning that is because if you can't get it out, at the end of their pipe, it still needs to flow to get to the river. So by making corrections on an intercounty drain from Saginaw north to the Grand River, by updating that, allowing the water to flow through there better, they'll see benefit on their drain. In other words, the water gets in their pipe, hits the intercounty drain connection and can't go because it's backed up already. So if you allow that to free flow, they will get benefit. So that's why everybody in the entire district will be charged assessed a fee.
They won't benefit from getting a larger pipe size, more updated pipe.
They will benefit from getting a larger updated pipe at the intercounty
At that section.
Correct.
But the rest of it,
They will need to petition, and as Lana said, it was 5 petitions to go to get their system assessed and developed, upgraded.
so would that be a double assessment?
Yes.
Am I understanding that? So they would have
Yeah.
2 assessments
Correct.
to make it, to really fix it, to totally or completely fix it. Okay. And the other thing that I heard on the meeting was there was a statement made that the reason the last project didn't go through in the 80s or whatever it was, the 70s, it was said, and I asked Brian about this, I think he heard the same thing, was, well, Delta Township, it was because of Delta Township Board. And then later, there was some comments to kind of clean it up a little bit, but I just wanted to let you all know there might be people that walked away from that thinking that we shut that down. And when in essence, it was the residents who did not want to incur that cost that shut down that project. So I just wanted to make you aware that came out in the meeting and I was stunned. So just in case someone talks to you about it. That was it. Thank you.
Mary.
So Rick, is this, trying to think of the 2 streets that make the circle that we've had ditch problems with?
Thomas L.
Thomas L. So the flooding and the water problems that they've had at Thomas L, isn't that part of the Briggs drain or no?
No.
That's another one.
Correct. The Iris, Richard, Rinker, all of those are not part of the Briggs. Again, they'll get some benefit, but they will not get the pipes in front of their homes upgraded.
Right, but if the end capacity is increased, then there is some degree of benefit.
Correct.
It does serve, the intercounty will serve part of Thomas L. Or Thomas L. and the neighborhoods Rick mentioned, but it will enlarge the main interceptor that goes all the way to the river. So it will increase some capacity from those neighborhoods. But it does not increase, as Rick and Alana have said, the pipes and the drainage in front of their homes. So it will have some benefit, but it
Yet to be determined.
yet to be determined. And the full solution is also dealing with drainage in front of the houses and on the streets.
And Rick, just for clarity, the residents have complained perennially on the Thomas L. in that area through there, that other street. There was some old orphan drains there, and that was part of the problem, if I recall, right? I mean, it's a low area and they weren't maintained, they were abandoned. So is that, remind me, is that the core issue of that small neighborhood through there that they've had issues with year after year?
Yes, when Thomas L., the east would be the county drain, the west where we've had collapses in that would not be part of the interjurisdictional, that would be, yeah, it's still an orphan drain. We have, there's several perfect storms here. One is, it was way undersized. There are what we call orphan drains, private drains. It's just a mixed bag of drainage issues that one fix isn't going to be the magic bullet. And what they're proposing is going to benefit, but it's not going to solve all of the problems. It's just a start.
And thus requiring the secondary petition by 5 residents at least to have it reviewed and determine if it's correctable and if our county drain commissioner agrees upon the assessment of the review board, would go ahead and try to correct that and then do an apportionment.
Yeah, if they pass an additional petition and they need 5 signatures, then it'll go through the same process that the interjurisdictional just went through. Verify the signatures, determine if there's practicability of it, and just the same procedure they just went through.
Right. So it's a 2-step process
For the secondary drain, correct?
to satisfy the residents that came before us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just clarification, Rick. The drain commissioner has the power by constitution to fix the problem without a petition, should they so choose. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I do not know that answer.
Well, they can,
Yeah.
they can assess with no, they just choose, if they choose to fix the problem, which our drain commissioner typically does not choose to fix the problem. So,
One thing to point out is when they do fix these drains, if and when, they do not fix them for all end-all storms. It's usually a 10-year storm. And I think that's what they're talking about as a 10-year storm. Such as I mentioned, part of my annual report, a lot of the sanitary sewer, they would design for a 25-year storm. And that's what you would build to. So when you have 50-year, 100-year floods, the drains are working. They're just not as effective at that volume of water at that determined amount of time.
Other questions?
And just to follow up, I just pulled up our Metro Act permit while we're here. So we do have, if property is not restored to our liking, then we can go in and restore it and charge the company. So there are a couple other protections in here I'd have to review closer, but that is one option. So we will keep on them. Like I say, we've had quite a few complaints, but they've usually been pretty responsive. And Jennifer has done a very good job usually of keeping on top of them for that. So we will, I'm assuming this one was probably just weather related, but we'll take a closer look and follow up again. And if we have to invoke that, then we can do that.
Great, and thanks, and we do appreciate that. I know I've referred, complaints and stuff, and I know staff does do a good job of following up on MetroNet. Maybe we need to have a conversation with MetroNet that, there seems to be a whole lot of people who are complaining that maybe they need to do the job right in the first place so that we don't have to follow up with them, and maybe remind them of that provision and tell them maybe we'll just start fixing things and charging them a very large amount. So maybe they need to do it right to start with.
I like that.
yeah, they're all subcontractors. We get calls, multiple calls every week that we send down to engineering about MetroNet.
We can do that. We have met with them in the past with their regional manager if we've had to. But we're happy to do it again and.
Yeah,
just
when
start
it's always
broken.
wrong the first time, they need to do a little quality control and make sure that it's rare that there's unhappy residents instead of, it seems like it's always the case of when they come through a neighborhood, people are upset at first that they gotta go out and fix it.
Yeah, I think, I think in some cases, and this, we've had a couple unique complaints. Always at this time of year, we tend to get a lot because it's so wet and they're waiting to get out to restore, do the restoration when there's some drier weather. And so, but
But a simple letter left in the door of the resident explaining that solves all that problem.
Sure.
People understand and they won't take just some basic communication steps. I know because they came through my neighborhood and they did the same thing. I got a dirt pile still in my front yard that they never took care of, so they just do crappy work. They don't communicate, they don't tell anybody. And then we are spending all of our time responding to this and they should be told that we're just getting tired of it.
noted.
Anything else, Brian?
That's all I have unless there's any questions.
Can I just
Sure.
jump in? I'll do my part as part of the manager's report. I gave everyone, all the board members, a digital thermometer, and this is to remind you that the clerk's office in partnership with utilities is doing a drive to have mercury thermometers turned in. And we will do a 1-for-1 here, but our big mercury pickup is this Friday. So if you could put on all your social media outlets to remind people to come in. And we're actually open till 7 PM tomorrow because we have to be open by law for the Lansing School District election. So we would welcome people to come in with their mercury thermometers. Because we don't want these in garbage. We don't want mercury in our water. So
So Mary, so they can come tomorrow or you want to
all
keep on
week,
Friday? Okay.
but I'm just saying that tomorrow we're open
You're open till
till
7.
7 o'clock tomorrow because of the election. So it'd be a good time for people who are working, just grab them and run by.
Do they have to be Delta residents? Anyone can come in and you'll
We
swap?
just want the mercury thermometers out of people's homes.
Will there be something posted on our Facebook page? the Delta
We've had
Center?
it off and on, but I'm just doing a last push.
Yeah.
We have a lot going on. We also have new voter information cards are going in the mail tomorrow. So right now I'm trying to push 2 different things. I'm fighting with myself for attention on Facebook and the webpage.
Anything else, Brian?
That's all I have.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brian. We'll move to the committee of the whole. We have 2 department reports. The first up will be the building department.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, board members. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty here.
No problem. Take your time.
Sorry about that. For those of you who don't know, I'm Matt Leach, I'm the building director. Lucky me, I took over last year as we were everybody was coming back to work. Our department takes care of all the construction projects around the township, issues permits, we take care of the blight signs. I think most of you are aware of what we do. Our office staff has changed quite a bit. We have some new faces. Last year, as we were coming back, we had one person move on to better pastures. We had a person retired beginning of the year. And then we hired a couple people, and then recently this year, we hired Adam, our mechanical inspector, with all the construction to help out Nate, who had been doing 2 different trades. Here's a breakdown of our permits by type. You can see 2020 was pretty low as we were coming out, but we're back up close to where we were in 2018. Our value for building permits were way up for 2021. As you know, we had a few large projects.
What was $180,000 appliance?
The appliance permits are like, it's a separate project that we created for, like, if you get a new electrical service on your house, it's an electrical appliance permit. If you just pull a permit for a hot water heater, it may be a plumbing or mechanical appliance.
That one permit must have been for a business if it was $180,000.
Let's go back.
Just curious, just caught my attention. There was only one, but it was $180,000.
Probably was a big commercial. You can see the amount of values we were way above for 2021. This is a breakdown of our permits monthly over the past 4 years. Our mechanical permits, they vary, but we've been fairly steady throughout 2021. Plumbing permits were surprisingly down a little bit. And here's the slide. As you can see, the online permit applications have been fairly steady, and the majority of people are using them now. They really like being able to pull their permits online and not have to come into the office or mail things in. And there's the permit fees, which you can see 2020 was a very bad year for us. But with the projects we've had, and I expect an additional very good year this year with everything we have. Just a comparison of the amount of permits or inspections for each inspector. That, as you can see, when we were going through the pandemic, they were down. We're getting back up to where we were. Some examples, you've probably seen some of these. Of our new projects. And there's some of our models. They've updated their buildings. The Elmwood Plaza, they did a remarkable remodel of that. Had to throw in the giraffe. Everybody's been worried about the giraffe.
Yeah, my kid was looking for it.
We also do the rental program, blight enforcement sign ordinance, which, as the board all knows, signs are a hot topic in Delta. And here you see the rental units we've drops, just under 300 rental units in the township. And if you look and see our code enforcements have went up considerably for 2021. We've seen a lot of the properties declining during the pandemic. People were home, weren't taking care of things. We've got properties that they're maintenance people, or they're having a hard time keeping maintenance people through the pandemic and getting things. We also, we created a code enforcement committee, so we're working with, we have multiple departments when we have problem properties. Try to get compliance for all of them. We've had several court hearings. We continue to try to meet with Eaton County to improve that process so that we can get the properties cleaned up that don't want to get cleaned up. We do have 4 properties of vacant, rundown houses that we have 3 court orders for demolitions. We're in the process of taking bids for those. We're real close to taking one, checking for asbestos and getting all the prices together, but we will be doing that hopefully soon. We're going to have maybe 4 or 5 this year. And we've also been doing a more proactive approach to the code enforcement and concentrating on different areas of the township rather than just being reactive. So that was another reason for the uptick in our code enforcement. Give some before and after pictures.
You have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. If I can just go back a couple slides where you were talking about the number of rental units dropping by about 300. That includes all our housing stock. So do you have any, do you have a sense of what the causes behind that? Because obviously there's huge demand and a shortage. Is that more some homes that were rentals, maybe being sold and becoming owner occupied?
Yes.
Okay.
There's some that they've rented, and with the housing market the way it's been, the landlords are selling them and people are buying them, moving into them, or they are already there. And so I think that has a lot to do with that. I mean, we used to have 6,600, we're down to just under 64. That's not a lot considering how many units we have, but.
So it's not so much a loss of housing, it's just whether or not it's rental.
I think it's mostly just going from rental to owned.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
One of the things that I should have mentioned on one of the slides, we've talked with the attorney, we're working with the court on getting some permanent injunctions on some of these properties so that if we get a court order, we get it cleaned up. 2 weeks later, it's back. If we get a permanent one, we can just get it taken care of.
Matt, for example, that St. Joe property, which is chronic offender, is there a fee that goes on their tax bill? Like if you don't mow your lawn and we have to have it, order it mowed, then it goes on your tax?
Every time we do a cleanup, a blight cleanup for a property, they are billed. If they do not pay it, it will go on their taxes eventually.
Okay.
Any questions? Any more questions?
I know we appreciate it. We definitely appreciate the increased enforcement on the codes and everything. That's something that we're hearing more and more from residents. Just that they're noticing more properties are not being kept up. And a lot of residents also don't like to have to be the one to call and complain on a neighbor. So they like when we do enforcement on our own and that we're out and about, we're catching these properties and we're staying on top of them. So we certainly we appreciate the increased enforcement that you and your staff are doing on that.
Yeah, we're trying to concentrate like in certain quadrants,
Mhm.
you know, for like a couple months and then we move, but we always take complaints and we can send somebody out, even if we're not concentrating on that area.
Great, good. Any other questions or comments?
Great job.
Thanks a lot. Next up is the fire department.
Good evening, everyone. I will see if we have the same good luck. There we go. Well, again, good evening. It's my pleasure to present our annual report to the board. I know you've perused through this already, so I'll go through and most of everything we put in here is diagrams and figures, so that allows us to have the conversation with what's been going on with us. This past year, we had a contract with Lexipol to do our policies and procedures, and we're still working on those. And this is our new mission statement that we have come up with as a department. Shorter, since a mission statement is supposed to be direct and within a few sentences. So this is what we've come up with. Basically, the end sentence there, that we're committed to delivering our services to the highest standard, professionalism, integrity, and accountability. That's what we do. When we don't do it right, we get calls from either you or patients or hospitals. So like in the past few years, we're going to hit each section from fire and EMS all the way down to our future goals. So this is a lead in. Obviously, we have our new engine that was pushed in this year, and there'll be another picture of that later. The image in the center is our pallet fire that we had at Camps Pallets that was quite an interesting event. And we've got some interesting training pictures for you that you've seen in the presentation or in your packet, but you'll need some explanation to know what we did. You have the Eaton County Central Dispatch report in front of you. So their numbers are a little different than ours, and this is our opportunity to explain it, where we show our EMS runs of over 5,500 and our fire runs of 3,000. This next slide shows what those numbers are when they're combined. Their numbers, when they come into our system, there's an EMS number and a fire number. What our program does, it integrates the calls. So if you have a fire apparatus, fire engine, or a fire number with an ambulance at the same scene, other departments count those as two incidents. We've combined them so they're one incident. So this is our final tally when you put all those numbers together. So we're over 6,300 for this year. So when you see those numbers, that's why there's a difference. And if I'm incorrect, you can make sure that Kelly will make sure I get that part right. When you saw Lieutenant Tyrell's presentation this year, you notice that those curves are pretty identical. Everything dropped in 2020. I think we're still getting heckled here. And now everything's on the rise because everybody's out and about again. So it's kind of not a vigor. It's just, it's going up an alarming rate. In the past few years, our calls by the day of the week kind of did a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing. But as you can see, they're starting to get more equal with every day of the week. So everybody's out and about at the same time, and it just gets busier. Now, compared to last year, our busiest time frame is between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. That's when you get to some of these care facilities, that's when people are getting out and about. Lunch traffic, things like that. And then it starts to calm down as people are starting to go home. And that seems to be consistent. This is kind of a standard we're held to when we do our reports, like the first one there, the average unit notified to end service. NFPA standards require us on a medical that we're supposed to be out in 60 seconds, on a fire run, 90 seconds. This is a combined number. What it doesn't tell you is if we were on one incident, we got dispatched to another one and we had to run to get to a vehicle and then go in service. So the number looks longer because we may have been tied up on another scene. And that seems to be what's been going on this past couple of years. We're tied up a lot. The other thing that's a little different is all the way over on the right. When you look at the average time to offload a patient at a hospital, this is a turnover time. We've had as long as 2 hours to wait to get somebody into the ED to be seen. So this is just the average. So it's over half an hour of waiting. So it's not a good thing. Yes.
Yeah, is that, I know during the pandemic, and, with hospitals being short-staffed, that's where you're bringing someone.
Yes.
They just don't have a place to bring that individual. And my understanding is that the paramedics have to stay with that individual till they can be.
Correct. Until there's a
fed for
report
them
given.
they can transfer that patient
Right.
over. So is that what it is? Just kind of
Well, it's a little deeper than that, because if there's no beds in the emergency department, that's because there's no beds up on the floor. So somebody has to be released on the floor, transferred out to another facility or home, or released, where the person in the emergency department can be moved to a floor. Then our patient can go into the emergency department. So it's kind of a tiered system to get people in. Plus they're shorthanded as well.
Yeah.
And with COVID and the restrictions, they're short-staffed, and the nurses can make a lot of money traveling. And they've lost some people to that as well. So we're trying to make it faster.
So is that still continuing, or are you seeing any adjustment in that?
It's
time, or
still
is-
continuing.
Yeah, the problems are all still there. Okay.
Plus one more caveat to that, now that McLaren's open, it's a little further away.
Mhm.
So now transport times from here, or if you live in the 2 townships that we serve to our north, you could have a half-hour trip easily to get to the hospital.
Okay.
So it's too bad we didn't build something this way. Yes,
Do the patients get to pick which hospital they want to go to?
yes. The protocol, if the patient says, I want to go to hospital A or hospital B, we abide by that protocol. Unless the hospital says we're in status yellow, we're closed, you have to go to the next facility.
And are you seeing more with McLaren now open? Are more patients wanting to go out there, or?
I can't give you a number on that. It's generally in this area, we go to Sparrow first unless it's requested. They're a higher level trauma center than McLaren is. So depending on the medical is also dictates where we go. So I believe they're level 1 trauma, and I believe McLaren is a level 3.
Well, I just had another question in looking at your numbers. Is it, do you ever run into a challenge of having enough staff to meet the need?
Yes.
Do you ever have enough people to take the call?
That's why and further in the product or the program here, like for example, this past week, we were so busy that we had 6 additional ambulances come into Delta to transport Delta residents to the hospital.
6?
So,
Has
yeah,
it
in
reached
one
that
day.
high before, or is that
Typical. That was a very busy day. Our days are getting busier, but when everything happens all at once, and I think there were 2 cardiac arrests going at the same time, so everybody was committed that other ambulances have to come in. Plus, we had the car train incident last week as well, so that took everybody. So when we are, and I think you asked last meeting about costs for Lansing Township. It's a mutual, and the manager addressed this as well. We have mutual aid agreements. So when we're tied up, they're next on our run cards to come into our area to help us. And it's the same with those agencies as well. We're listed as their backup. So if they're tied up, we go there. So it kind of comes out in the wash. And I believe there's only 3 times this past year that we've got a bill from one of our neighboring agencies to offset the cost. Because with our millage, our residents, it's covered for them to be transported with their insurance covers. And if our neighboring agency, to make them whole, we might get a bill for $200 to make them complete with a call. And that's a fair trade-off but we're not we're not helping with their costs or expenses. So it's pretty shared across the board.
Okay.
And that'll show up in the next, we see all of our mutual aid runs.
Okay.
Here's our top 14 busiest places that we have. Ivan Woods Apartments is number one, so that's 5301 Ivan Drive, and it goes all the way down our list, and we're always seem to be going to Regency. At Lansing, that's the 12200 broadband address that if you listen to us, you hear us go there a lot too. I went down 14 because I wanted to show GM since we're getting another facility. We're just estimating that we'll double the calls to that area. And we don't know what kind of calls will get to that area during construction. So we're planning that we'll be running over 80 times a year to the GM facilities. And that's all we can do is estimate. We don't have an estimate yet for Amazon. Some of the agencies we've contacted have been running an average of 10 to 15 calls per week to an Amazon facility. So we'll see how that washes out as this facility comes online.
So Chief, is it Meyer Warehouse or Meyer West Saginaw Store? Or combined?
We've got the 5,000 block of Saginaw, that's Myers.
Meyer, yeah.
Yep, the Meyer itself, the Giraffe. There seems to be a lot of medicals there too.
What's up with the Red Roof Inn?
That is more of a challenged income residential establishment. There seems to be a lot of overdoses there. There's a lot of illegal activity there that the sheriff's department's involved in. So it's and at one point they were housing homeless from the city of Lansing who were COVID positive. So that was one of their sites that they housed them to. But that's one of our big overdose locations.
My word. Oh, well, I hope there are services or some strategy to try to turn that around.
Yeah, it's more within the city of Lansing, but our numbers have gone down a little bit since that's no longer an established care place or place for COVID. Yeah. So if you're COVID positive, that's where you could go for your 10 to 14 days. That's no longer it's not happening there anymore. To break it down, if you wanted to see the top, we've got 77 codes that we can put into the system that are in the system for our calls. So the top 5 obviously is 1 and 2 family homes or the bulk of our calls. Second is multifamily. And then third is our 24-hour care facilities that we have in our township. We've got a lot of highway accidents as well. Obviously, it's busy out there. Oops, that went too fast. These are numbers directly from Eaton County Central Dispatch. So like that sentence says there, these are all requests that are either we've requested, it's mutual aid, automatic aid, or it's in the run card system where we have a structure fire going, they pull up a card in the system and it automatically sends our neighboring units to help us. So if there's something out here in this area, Grand Ledge would be automatically sending an engine, an ambulance, or an aerial to help us. So that's where all these numbers come into play. They're all combined here. So mutual aid given and EMS given, this is everything. So we've been receiving 355 mutual aid, could be a fire apparatus. We've got 321, which for EMS or an ambulance. We've also given 153 for fire mutual aid requests. That's in the system in the cards. And we've received 237 for EMS. So we're giving more kind of than we're receiving, but sometimes we're bigger than a lot of our neighbors. So that's why that works out that way. Windsor Township, for example, just got approval to put on, I believe, 2 more full-timers per shift to help offset the number of times that their neighbors have to come in and help them. So it's a numbers game. We're helping them, they're helping us. Maybe I broke it. Okay, injuries, which is always, not a nice thing to talk about, but our numbers are the same as it was the year before. We've only had 4, and they're typical injuries, strains, bumped into something, hit by something, contact with something. It could be it could have been a needle. I got a sharp that I got a poke. Now I have to go through treatment for that. I believe that was one of the incidents. So our numbers are low. 2 years ago, they were much higher. So I like it when the numbers are lower. So if you're interested in, oops,
It's not necessarily an injury, but it reminds me, I was watching, as I shared with Alana, a city council meeting from another area in the state. And the fire chief there reported that they're seeing an uprise in suicide. And
I've got that
it-
information a little further down.
Oh, well, I'll hold it for that.
That's,
I'm sorry.
yep,
I
there,
didn't have a chance
right,
to
and
gather all of it, so I'll wait. Thank you.
well, but to address that, Flint, City of Flint Fire unfortunately lost to 55-year-old firefighter suicide 3 weeks ago, I believe. So it is out there. There are stressors out there. There's things that, as we say, I cannot unsee. So that's why we have a lot of behavioral health access that we do and a lot of programs that we have. If you're interested in the dollar amounts, this is in there, what we've collected, that we're billed, what we collect, and the breakdown of what payer or payee has. Is it Medicare, Medicaid, is it private insurance? So we're holding average, it's pretty good average for our cost for a transport. So we're staying pretty consistent there. Some of the challenges that we've had. Obviously, COVID-19 has been really big with challenges. It's affected our staffing. When MDHHS came out with various guidelines throughout the past 2 years, we've had to change our model. At some point, we had 3 personnel in 1 ambulance just for contamination purposes. When they came back from a call, they all had to go through decontamination. So they're down for another half hour at least when they get back, so we can decontaminate the ambulance. They put their clothes and everything in a bag. They hit the showers, they get cleaned up, and then they're back in service. At one point during this process, we got a directive from MDHHS telling us that assume all patients that we pick up are COVID positive. So that went right back to everybody's in an N95. You put plastic between the driver's compartment and the back end. It just made it interesting. Fortunately, it's lightening up out there right now. We just keep that other variant away. We were pretty fortunate with, believe just less than 50% of our staff actually got sick. And we didn't exhibit any signs. Or our first sign and symptom of COVID was 9 months into the epidemic. So we did a pretty good job of keeping people safe during that time frame. I think we were one of the only ones. And then last year's presentation, our decon process that we used was sent to 5 other states that requested it. So they were doing the same thing we were doing. And let's see, we already talked about relays and patients. And COVID also, as everybody's talked about, is supply chain issues. It took a long time for us to get the proper N95s to meet what we needed. Equipment that we need to buy. For example, we've placed an order for an ambulance. That's a year. We have to place an order for another one. And now we're looking at 700 days minimum before that comes in. And we haven't done that process yet. So you'll see that paperwork coming in the near future. Fire engine that was approved earlier this year that we've ordered. We haven't even had the pre-construction meeting yet. And after that happens, they're looking at least 2 years for that. So it's the supply for the steel and the drive train and everything that's involved. Staffing wise, since I've been here, we've been short, but as the manager reported earlier, we've just made offers to actually 9. 1 was picked up by the city of Muskegon already. So we'll be bringing these individuals on board and we'll actually be where we were. I think it was 1.5 years or 2 years before I started. So we're still behind, but at least we're getting there. We tried several different things and the board was gracious enough to approve the MOUs that are out there. So we had to go outside the box to recruit people from all over, 1 from Florida, 1 from Kentucky. So we got some good people out of this process. And Assistant Chief Kaler did a great job with the system he set up to have a system to look at everybody. We kind of got rid of the paramedic license part. Let's look at the people and what they brought to the table. And I think the department, and I think you'll be pleased with what we bring in. The unfortunate part for some of this with our shortages, we had to do some station closings. And station 2 and 3 had to be closed through portions of last year. And station 3 was only closed. I didn't write that number down, like 7 days, and station 2 was 98 days last year. Just because we were so short, and we had to change our model to bring people more central so we could have more vehicles available. But since we've done the MOU, I think since January, whenever we started talking about this, it's only been closed maybe twice. So that's been a major change. So fire prevention was kind of interesting. Fire Inspector Roberts went into the private sector. Everything you see that's going on in our parking lot over here today looks like we're building a new building, but it's part of the system he's involved in. There's a training that we're hosting over there for insurance adjusters and evaluators. They're going to be using our burn cube over there so they can see what things are going to happen. There's going to be cars into that building they're building so they can see what happens and what has to be done to estimate damage, things like that. So we're working on sharing with our private partners. So it does kind of look like it's a whole new building going up over there. What didn't happen was our annual fire inspections, because with COVID and businesses closed, too much of a risk just to go into buildings. Plus, since we lost Inspector Roberts, we have a new fire inspector and he's getting up to speed, getting his certifications and his training. So it's and plan review. So it's been a little tough to get out there. So we're catching up with that as well. Let's see what has changed also since we weren't out in the public. Again, we did our annual fire prevention open house, if you will, with our neighboring agencies at Mount Hope Park. That seemed to work out really well, where people could come there and see everybody and see everything outdoors. So that reduced the risk. Got all of the agencies working together on things. So we got to meet our neighbors more too. We also hosted a traffic incident management program with the state of Michigan and MDOT. That's what's in that lower right. There was a video that was produced, a new video for a slow down, move over type video that we were in at the MSP track before they tore it up. So we were using all of our vehicles and our neighboring vehicles to show what it's like when somebody goes by you at 60 miles an hour while you're on the side of the road trying to help. So it was a good process to go through. Some fire loss that we've had this year. It's been a little expensive. We had $1.7 million in fire loss, but the biggest culprits were 1 and 2 family dwellings. I don't have addresses here, but we did have multiples. So that was $690,000 right there. But we did have the roof fire at the Erickson plant. That was almost $400,000 worth of damage there that cost them. And we've had some warehouse incidents, product burned up inside a warehouse, things like that. And we also put the pallet fire in the warehouse category 2. So that got us up to the 1.7. So it looks like it's skyrocketing, but we've had some pretty expensive things happen. Again, this is a similar slide that you saw last year. These are all of our partnerships that fire prevention is involved in. The other thing I added on there is the MFIT, that's the Metro Fire Investigation Team. So we're getting back involved with our neighbors. So if they don't have an investigator available, that we can use ours. And if we don't have any available, we can call our neighbors as well. Burning permits, which is also always a nice topic to deal with when people are calling, and they're supposed to call, find out if burning is on today. And if we say no because of the wind, they always say it's not windy here. But we go by the National Weather Service. So we've issued over 2,300 permits this past year, and most of those have been electronic. We've tried to move everything to an electronic base. Unfortunately, some of the residents in Eagle and Watertown do not use the internet, or they're seniors that they just don't use technology. So we're still taking care of them. They'll come in and we'll manually enter it for them and either put it in the mail when they call, or they'll wait at the window, we'll print it out for them. So training, we've done over 4,700 hours of training this past year. The image on the left there, we were fortunate enough to be able to tear into an old ambulance. They used a front end loader to turn it over and try to smash it. And they discovered that those things are built pretty solidly. So it took a while to actually damage it so they could try getting people out. One on the right, that was our full-scale exercise we did at the beginning of last year where we had simulated the floods. So we had boats in the water and we had people in the water just to go through the motions. What we hit on during our annual training, we hit behavioral wellness, suicide prevention, cancer prevention are the biggies. There's a lot of EMS that we do. We also do a blue card system where it's a fire tactics and control incident command system. So there's a whole list of things that you can see there that we do. Behavioral wellness, the Michigan Chiefs are supporting the Yellow Rose campaign, and that's the suicide prevention program. So you'll see us wearing the blue t-shirts with the Yellow Rose on it. It's from the Chiefs on down because we've had some Chiefs that have suicided as well. Yes.
Is your training like continuous, or is it or some of these continuous, or is it you just set some of these like aside certain time?
They continue, like our EMS continuing it. There's certain amount of credits that we have to hit every year. Same with fire now. There's continuing education requirements that we have to get so many CEs a year, and all this adds up. So we have to also talk about OSHA and MyOSHA. There's requirements there every year through Part 74. So but the other thing on there, like the live fire certification training, we got that back this past year. We got people retrained. So now we're recertified to hold our own live burn training down at the Big Blue, down at LCC. But these are recurring. We hit because we get new employees or we miss some training, like ice rescue will hit, swift water will hit again. We'll put people in the rivers and we'll just be working at it.
So are these, do you have to hit these every year? Is this something like you have to be certified in everything here?
This is a sample because we also, what's not, I don't think it's in there, the training that Alana sends out, those are counted in the hours. The IT training that goes out, that goes in our total hours. So this is just a sampling of what we have to do every year. So there's actually more than what shows up. We may not hit an NFPA training this year. It may not be required, but we hit, like the NFPA this year was a live burn training certification that we got.
Okay, so some are like maybe every other year or every 6 months.
A lot of them are recurring.
Okay. Yep.
So but there are more there there are signed through our records management system that you get an email that this training is overdue. So a lot of it can be video, things like that. And a lot of it's in person, like the active assailant training. We'll have a full scale exercise this August at one of our schools that we're building up for too. So, and that seems, unfortunately, that's what's going on in the world. So again, the picture up there, we've seen the ambulance. That center picture with the pink, we were fortunate enough to have animal lungs brought in so they could do cricothyrotomy training, so they could do emergency crikes, inflate the lungs, breathe as if it were a person. So we were fortunate there. That was kind of nice. Lower left, obviously, we had some live burn training, so there's lots of smoke there. We've been, forcible entry training through a door. We've had trench rescue training. This year we did our autism training, so that was a new one this year. This year we did it, but I wanted to put it up there because we just had April. When we get into emergency management, of course, you all got that annoying text today for reply yes that you got it. But there's a lot of things that we have to do. You can see our mantra there: prevention, preparedness, response, recovery, mitigation. There's a lot of things we do in emergency management, and currently we're working on the hazard mitigation. There we go. For floods. So I'll be getting with Rick, and I have to talk to you about the names of these drains that I can put in that project that's due Friday. We did the silver thaw, which was the ice storm that some of you got some calls in January of things that needed to be done. So we've got annual requirements through MSP that we do, and so we keep busy with it. We monitor weather, there's flooding. We have a mini EOC, and that's kind of helped, actually COVID helped us with that. Since we couldn't be in person, we did everything remotely. So we were able to have fewer people in EOC, but we can contact you wherever you are for decisions. So we learned, we made great progress with that. So what have we accomplished this year? Actually, quite a lot. Engine 433 was received and pushed in at Station 3. There was funding for a new aerial apparatus, which has been ordered, and they expect it about a year from now. So it's faster to get an aerial than it is to get an fire engine or an ambulance. What's not listed there is the new pumper. We haven't even met to do a pre-construction meeting yet. That's how far behind everything is. The Stryker ALS 360 program with the help of the manager and Courtney, we were able to buy that program, if you will. And after the meeting's over, I brought one of the Lucas devices here so you can see what a Lucas is, what it does for us, what it does for our patients, and the survivability rate is so much higher because the machine does all the CPR for you, and it doesn't make mistakes. There's no human element except you putting this on somebody. So after the meeting, if you're interested, we'll have you set it up and see how easy it is. And one of the other nice things, great things, we hired Assistant Chief Kaler, and it's been a godsend and helping with getting things done. Another thing that we started was the cultural recognition to try to match the township goals. So in our calendars, when we have some cultural recognition information, we'll put it in on our crew sense, which is what everybody would see every day when they log in. So there'll be notes for a whole month of what's happening around the world, and we'll put that in there. Oh, I thought I started.
That's really cool. I
It's,
like that.
we learned it from City of Lansing and Lansing PD because they did this very similar thing. So now we're just in the same chain to get the information. So we're sharing this, whatever is coming out culturally, we'll put it in there so people can read it. We also had our Fire Employee of the Year, which is Captain Tagler this year. He was nominated by peers, and the nomination forms are evaluated by a non-department person. They're based solely on what people write about the person. So it's not like, I look at them and say, I like you better this year, you're going to get the award. I take the forms that were submitted this year, and I think 5 people were nominated. I give them to somebody outside the organization, review, what do you think? Because they don't know the person. So it's based solely on what you as a writer would put in a form. And we totally surprised them here, and we were fortunate. Mary Clark, we did like a mass swearing in because of COVID. We couldn't be in front of the board. So we scheduled one day, and Mary did the swearing in groups. And then we snuck in the Employee of the Year award on him, and we made him cry. So, whoops.
That was pretty cool.
I skipped it. It didn't go backwards. Come on. Okay. Couple things that were future goals. Obviously we've changed our recruiting model completely. We've got some good people coming in. We're still working on our lexical policies program. We're working on a fire training officer program to purchase so that all these new people will have the same information to go through their training with. Some of the other future goals that are not listed there, obviously we've got the GM plant and coming in. So we're setting up, we're working with the City of Holland Fire Department and the City of Lordstown, Ohio. We're going to go take a tour of their facilities. Holland has the LG battery plant. Lordstown, Ohio, their identical plant for GM is still under construction. And the conversations that we're having, it's not been a picnic with what they're going through. So we're going to go and see before they break ground here to get a list of problems that they had that we can address ahead of time, specifically with codes. What kind of responses do they expect? How do we get access to buildings? Things like that. So we know ahead of time.
Well, to that point, Chief, if I may ask, is there something particular of concern with a lithium ion battery facility?
It's the battery itself. that when it heats up and off gases, they're very toxic.
Mhm.
So we have to have the way to, basically we let it burn.
Really?
Because they heat up so hot, those gases are the way it's cooling itself off. At least that's what we're learning from other jurisdictions that have dealt with it and some recent training that we had. So it's best to isolate them. If we can remove them, get them outside, let them do what they need to do without us pouring water all over it, because then you're kind of containing it and making the reaction worse.
Is there an issue of these, if a battery combusts, that they could ignite other batteries in close proximity?
If it's in the, I'm not familiar with how it's being laid out in the facility. I know that there's rooms set up so they're separated.
Okay.
And I know that, like, if you have an EV vehicle and if it's burning, the best information we have is let it burn, let it be done, then it's done, it's over. If it's something in the garage, like if you have your EV car that catches on fire in the garage, if we can pull it out, we will. And stay away from it because the gases coming off are not good. So it's a whole new technology. There's new extinguishers that are available that we have to look into as well.
Okay.
So it'll be a little bit of a challenge. Another challenge or future goals, or I guess if you want to call it it's a challenge. Our call volume is increasing, so we're going to have to look at other models of how we can best deliver service without our neighbors having to run out more calls for us. So we're working on that with our neighbors as well, with our run cards. To answer your question, I know I had the numbers written down on firefighter suicides. I know in 2021, we had 81 confirmed. And when I say confirmed, the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance reaches out to families and they have a conversation and talk about it so they can say that it actually was. So in 2021, we had 80 firefighters, 13 EMTs or paramedics. Currently, as of today, we're at 20 firefighters and 3 EMTs. In 2020, we had a dispatcher that was confirmed, and in 2018, 2 dispatchers. So what's not in here is law enforcement, because we don't track law enforcement. It's just our communication center that deals with police, fire, EMS. So we kind of track those. So we do have resources available to us through our behavioral wellness program through Backing the Badge. We have peer support programs. We have clinicians that are available. So it's anybody that ever calls and asks for help. We get them resources. Our goal is, if somebody calls our Cavalier peer support hotline, we stay with them and we get them help. And we keep up to and including, we can get them admitted into a hospital setting to get help. We've got that capability.
I'm glad to hear that there's support. That was my question, because I really didn't really think about it until I was watching the Flint City Council, and the fire chief there was just torn up. It was just so torn up about the loss of staff to suicide.
I think they had a police officer suicide or killed in the line of duty. I can't remember. 2 in 1 year. But I've been trying to reach out to the fire chief there to at least peer support wise at a chief level, and it's difficult to get a hold of him. And I'm sure that he's tied up with everything else that's going along with it, plus everything else that's going on in the city of Flint.
Well, I'm glad that there are resources available.
And generally
for
they're
our
free.
team.
We just have to get the resources available to them so they can see it.
Right. And recognize the signs, but I think through the wellness program that's offered for employees, I think mental health is probably something that's incorporated.
Well, we do have a special, I think it was 2018, Chief mentioned Backing the Badge. That's an employee assistance, a program that we added just for the fire department. So it's not available for the rest of the employees, but it's geared towards fire department behavioral wellness. So they have some resources through that.
And a lot of people on their staff are currently police, fire, EMS, dispatch with a degree in mental health, or they're retired and went back to school and now have their social work degree or higher. So they've talked the talk, they walk the walk. So there's There's none of the interaction of trying to tell me your job so I can understand what you do before I can help you.
They know
It's
the
all,
job.
yeah, they know the job, and when you sit down, they already know. And they can talk in the lingo, if you will, and to understand what's going on.
Well, I did have one more question, if I could, about staffing. So congratulations and kudos to all involved, because I know you spent a long time
And it's
with not
nice
having
having
the staff.
Kyle on
So
board. It helped a lot.
congratulations on that. Now, does that leave any vacant? I thought, I might have heard you say that you still might have some openings. Did the 8?
That will get
Or
us to
9.
where we were before I started.
Okay.
What we have to project in the future is our call volume that we can anticipate with some big facilities coming in with the construction over here. What is our daytime population going to be now? So the draw on our resources is going to be tough, that we have to really look at to see what do we need to do to be available to visitors and residents as our call volume increases.
Okay.
Because currently we've got 6 ambulances ready. It's, you know, usually there's 3 staffed right now, but with these 8 coming on board, we should be able to, once they're trained, get some more on the road.
Thank you.
Chief, just a quick question. You were sharing the statistics and they're, you know, it's hard to hear those numbers on suicides and that. Are those national numbers? Are those Michigan numbers?
Those are the numbers I gave you. Those are national numbers.
Okay.
And you can look that up on the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance webpage. They're all there. So that's nationally that we know of.
Is there, you know, I know the last 2 years during the pandemic, it's created a lot of stress for different individuals and I think first responders exceptionally so. Is that something that you see? I mean, was that happening before? Is that separate from the pandemic or that's exacerbated
Yeah,
some
it's
of the
kind of-
stressors a little,
it's a
or it
weird
was
animal.
already happening?
The COVID kind of accelerated it on the uniform side and civilian side. There's been an increase in suicides, the civilian population. I don't know why. You'd have to ask my wife, who's the therapist, but her numbers of people she sees have increased. So it's all across the board, all different walks of life. So I can't tell you what the stressor is. Is it everybody working together at home? That could be. Businesses closed. A lot of things that are stressors in there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
That's it. Any other questions?
Very good. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
She got me out of here.
Thanks for a great report. Last thing on our committee of the whole is the discussion of the manager's evaluation. The plans, if folks don't have any objections, is do it as we have in previous years, where we'll have the evaluation sent out by Mary to everybody. And Mary, would you like those back by the close of business Thursday, or what's your deadline?
When do you want to take it up?
Next week.
I'll say by noon Friday,
That late?
and I'll set them out Friday afternoon. So you'll have the compilation Friday and separate from the board packet, but about the same time you get the board packet.
You're
But-
sending those out tomorrow?
Mhm.
Okay, then we will.
They're actually in, I mean, you're in your packet, but I'll send them separate as an email, but given that time frame, you'll have to call your own mom to get your stuff turned in because
You're not going to do it for
I'm
us,
not,
Mary?
no.
I thought you wanted us to ask her mom what they think of Brian.
I want you to talk to your mother about you getting your report, your stuff back to me.
Mary, I know there's the form in the packet, but I thought typically the one that you share is edible, like PDF. So
It
we'll
is,
get that
right.
version.
Yes.
So we don't have to mess.
Right.
And
You can do it by hand if you want
no.
and scan it and email it to me or drop it off. I get them all different ways. I don't care. I just need them by noon so I can get a final product out by 5.
Yes.
In the past, we've had the benefit of reviewing Brian's self-assessment. And I was just wondering if we're going to have that opportunity again this time, so we can, again, truth test
Sure. Brian
his
can
self-assessment
fill
when we
it out.
do
We'll have that
our
on the-
Everything's
evaluation.
excellent. It
I
seems like a-
Yeah, I can have that
Like the-
preview
consolidated.
tomorrow or
Okay.
whenever. Just
Well, why don't we have it after everybody does it? Your assessment will be compared, but we'll do, everybody do our assessment. Yours
Yes.
can go out, then Mary will send it out on Friday with you combined evaluation. Fine.
I can't remember if last time we had the previous evaluation available to us to see what we said or what recommendations we put in there, because I don't remember.
I
Sorry.
don't think we usually send it out, but we probably could. It's easy.
Yeah, I'd like to see what the final evaluation was, just to sort of see all the great stuff that he did, which I'm sure was a lot.
Check your spam. It's going to be a big packet then.
Okay.
So one of the issues I have with just using the same form is what new things are on the horizon that maybe we should be determining that something we would like our manager to pursue in the succeeding year. I don't have necessarily an example, but I mean, that seems to be lacking when we just like, cut and paste an old form with a new one without, like, is there something on the table that, a member would like the board to discuss as far as what may be an initiative we would like the manager to pursue in the succeeding year? That's just not there as a question.
It is there in the sense of there's open comments that people can give, because the form, I think, is fairly comprehensive and covering all areas of the functioning of a manager and the areas that they're responsible for. So if there's something new that you want to have brought up, then there's the comments that you can add.
I mean, it can be done there. I don't have anything specific, but these are pretty dynamic times, and it's something maybe we want to discuss if a board member has an idea that they would like to put on the table for discussion. I'm just throwing it out as a comment.
Everybody can come prepared next Monday to bring up anything they want to bring up. Any other comments, any questions or concerns about the process? And then we will have our closed session discussion next Monday during the committee of the whole, and then the following week we'll bring back the evaluation for presentation to Brian. So that concludes our committee of the whole items. Any other comments from the board? Any final public comment? Seeing none, seeing no further business reports, we are adjourned.